If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
If you have the same vision as International Horse College, which is to have a world where people safely appreciate, respect and enjoy their horses, and the horses appreciate, respect and enjoy their people, then have a look at their website, internationalhorsecollege.com, registered training organisation 31352. Today's guest is Larry Cutler, and for those people who haven't heard about Larry Cutler, he's been around everywhere. He's got an extensive experience in the horse industry. As a horseman, he spent 55 years working in the industry, including as a breeder, competitor, judge, classifier for the Australian Stock Horse Society. He's very generous with his time and energy, gives a lot back to the horse industry. He's worked on committees and boards, and he's, Australian Stock Horse. He's currently the Senior Vice Chair of the Australian Stock Horse Society Board of Directors. How are you today, Larry?
Very well, thanks, Glenys.
Great. Now, Larry, we start off with a favourite quote. I should have warned you about this because sometimes we sort of get people a little bit stumped. Do you have a favourite quote that you'd like to say, sort of like a life thing, or even just something when you're teaching people you find yourself saying over and over again, just so that people get the message that this is a really important thing to do?
Yeah, I guess one of the things that was drummed into me as a young person, and what I tell people today is you never want to be in a hurry. And some of the biggest mistakes I've seen were when people, they say, I've got half an hour before I go and pick the kids up from school. I'll just rush down and teach that horse how to go on and off a float. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer than what you thought. And if you're in a hurry, you'll make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I think they're on their own time, aren't they?
Yeah.
The thing is, if you're not in a hurry, it's when you're not in a hurry, they go, oh, I get this. Yeah, it's easy.
That's it.
Yep.
It comes down to the difference between asking them to do something and telling them. And the less time you got, the more inclined you are to tell them instead of asking them.
Yep. Now, Larry, I know that you've been around horses all your life and you can tell us a little bit about that, but I'm more interested in the work. You really give back to the horse industry. So tell us a little bit about how you started with horses, but then tell us, because you judge, you're on committees, on boards, you seem to be a very giving person. So tell us about the first committees that you were on as well.
Okay, well, I grew up with horses. Like the Cutlers have been involved with horses since the 1800s, and mainly working horses, and they were graziers in Western New South Wales and Southern Queensland, and horses have always been part of the family life. Our family moved into Inverell when I was a teenager, and I spent the teenage years in Inverell before going to Tokyo Ag College, and that was where I got involved with the Australian Stock Horse Society. We had some of the early people that started with the stock horses in 71 came to the college to do some rounding up of new members, I guess, and there were a number of us students who were keen on horses, and we signed up as members. That was 1976, and I've been a member of the Stock Horse Society ever since. And the Stock Horse Society's been terrific to me. I was encouraged when I was only 21 to get involved in the committee of the West Gippsland Stock Horse branch after moving from Northern New South Wales to Victoria, and they also got me to be a classifier for the West Gippsland area of Victoria. And from there I got into judging while I was competing, which was terrific because I've done a lot of cattle judging, and I just found judging horses came quite easy after judging cattle. So it's something that I enjoy doing, and now that I've got a very bad back and I'm not supposed to get on a horse anymore, something that I can give back to the society or to horse committees is the fact that I can still go around and judge horses and cattle at shows, and whether it be at a local show or a royal show, and it's just a way for me to give back to an industry that I've got a lot of satisfaction out of.
So Australian stock horses themselves have been around since horses were in Australia and using horses to help with the stock. But the actual Australian Stock Horse Society, can you tell us a bit about, why that was formed and what the ideal stock horse is?
Yeah, it was formed in 1971, and it was formed by people who were absolutely passionate about the fact that the Australian horse, as they called it, that had been developed over probably a good 100 years, wasn't being recognised. Like the early horses, they were just called stock horses or camp draft horses or working horses or whatever, and there was no official name given to the breed, there was no official breed. And a number of people like Brian Gavin and Tiger Batteram and they all got together and decided, that we actually needed to recognise that that Australia had produced a horse that was consistently good at stock work, but that horse could also be played polocross on the weekend, or the kids could take it to pony club or anything like that. And so the versatility of the Australian stock horse is the first and foremost thing that was recognised.
Yes, the versatility, I think, is the big thing, because they're out doing everything. They're out eventing, they're out doing dressage, jumping, pony club, as well as camp drafting and all the other sports.
Yeah, correct, yeah. And that comes about because they've been selectively bred for a couple of 100 years to be horses that had to be versatile. They were the early stock horses were put in the cart and they went into town to do grocery shopping or whatever, and then they were driven out, and then the kids rode them around, or they went to work during the week, and then they were the sporting horse on the weekend as well. So
yes.
That's what our forebears bred the horses to be. And so it wasn't until 1971, and it probably came about because there was a big push from the Quarter Horse Society to promote quarter horses in Australia, and I think a lot of the Australian stockmen thought, well, if we don't hurry up and recognise our own horses, we won't, we'll be just another horse.
Yep. You work on properties and have horses involved in that work. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So all the stock work that we've done on our own property here, and when I've managed cattle properties, was all done on horseback.
So if someone's going to come and work on a property, do they need those horse skills before they get started? Are they an advantage? What sort of person are you looking at to work with you on a property?
Yeah, well, obviously, you haven't got time to be teaching people to ride from square one. So it's certainly an advantage. I mean, if they've gone to pony club for a few years, or they've gone off and, just gone out and ridden horses somewhere, as long as they know how to get on and off a horse and how to sit there. I mean, the days of putting young people on horses that are going to be naughty are just gone. You can't afford to get anyone hurt these days. So we're very selective with the genetics that we breed with.
Yep.
And the stallion that we Standard Stud's known for his good temperament and good type. So the progeny that people ride are all quiet horses, and it's not worth persevering with anything that's got a bit of dirt in it these days, because there's too many good ones to put up with the bad ones.
Yes, for sure. But what about so we've got the horse skills. What other sort of things? What sort of personality traits, what sort of core skills, what sort of character do they need to be to work on the properties?
Righto. Well, I was taught a long time ago, my grandfather and father said, animals adopt the temperament of their handlers. And I find that very, very true. So if you've got someone who's very reactive and very loud and waving their arms around and got a very loud voice, the animals tend to be on edge all the time. And whether that's the cattle or the horses or whatever, because those people, their way of reacting to anything that happens is they go up a few volumes with their voice, and they tend to wave their arms around. And people, if you're going to lose your temper or get upset, well, then you probably shouldn't be working with animals. You're probably better off with machinery, because it doesn't hurt if you smack a tractor.
Yes, you're right. And thinking about the competitors, are they of the same temperament? What do the top ones, the ones that you go, wow, that's a really good competitor? You know, they're always doing well, their horses are always seem to be happy. What do they have above the others?
Yeah, well, almost the same as what I just said. They tend to be very level with their behaviour. You don't see them getting upset. You've got to have a pretty calm approach to everything you do, because whatever you do with horses, if you're in a bad mood for whatever reason, nothing to do with the horse, if you're just in a bad mood and you decide to go down and catch a horse and ride it, that horse knows right from square one that you're in a bad mood and things could go wrong. And usually when things can go wrong, they will. And I've been a great believer that if you're having a bad day, you're better off to go fencing or do something like that, because you're not going to upset an animal or whatever. You might break a wire or you might pinch your finger with the pliers, but you're not going to do any damage to anything.
Yep.
I think the really top riders that have impressed me over the years Steve Brady has certainly been other than my own father and family, Steve Brady's had a big effect on me and the way I think about horses and train horses, and I've never, ever heard him raise his voice or get upset. Sometimes you've actually got to take a step closer to him to hear what he said, but he's a brilliant horseman that can just watch people ride, and he'll never criticise anyone. He'll say, "You're doing a great job, but why don't you just try this?" And, I've seen him turn some really good riders around in a weekend, and they didn't even realise that they'd improved so much. And certainly myself's in the same boat. I've learned a lot from Steve.
Good. What about, you've talked about people that influence. What about horses? Have you had any? Well, I'm sure you've had quite a few horses that have influenced you, but, just think about one that's probably influenced you the most. Sometimes horses teach you what not to do, not just what to do.
Yeah, I've had a few of them. I had an Ostock Merengue stallion back in the late 70s, early 80s, and if you weren't ready to get on him and think about what you were doing, you could certainly end up in trouble. But probably the stallion I've got now, who's in his 20s, Bo Polo, he's been a great horse for me too. He's my fifth stallion that I've owned, and you learn a little bit off each one. So I guess each time you've got one, they should get a little bit better. And he's been really good, because I've camp drafted him, and I've won at national level in the show ring with him, and won at Royals, and he's just been one of those great all-rounders that we all hope we have sometime in our lifetime. And he's 110% trustworthy to ride, and we get people coming here to the stud that want to ride a horse that sometimes have never ever ridden before, and it's silly to say, but the go-to horse is the old stallion, and you can go and catch him if he's been turned out for months and put a saddle on him and put someone on him that can't ride, and he'll just poke around and they'll have their ride.
Wow.
And not a lot of those horses around.
And he throws great temperament too, doesn't he?
Oh, just brilliant. Yeah, we've got an heir to the throne at the moment that's a 4-year-old colt, and Carrabba Park Traveller, and he's very similar to his old man for his temperament. He's a beautiful natured colt, and just a lovely type. And it would be. He hasn't been out and about too much because I can't ride anymore, and I've just got to get other people to campaign him for me. And a lot of people go, "Oh, yeah, I'll ride him," until they find out that you got a colt. And then they go, "Oh no, we haven't got facilities for a colt." So. But I'll find someone to get him going for me, and I can call him and he canters up to get caught, and he's been shot, and whatnot. He's broken in and did work up in the bush for 3 or 4 months, and the people that had him told me if I didn't go and pick him up, I'd never get him back. So he's they obviously took a fair bit of him as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that, because you'd have to look back, all the horses you've had and all the wins you've had and, everything else, is there one proud moment that you think outshines all the others?
Look, probably it's hard to tell. I mean, winning a big camp draft is always good. I suppose winning at the national show with Bo Polo, he won the ridden stallion or colt at the National Stock Horse Show when he was only a 4-year-old, and that was a pretty big achievement. Winning open draft, and I've won a couple of them with different horses. That's always good because you've had to beat usually 150, 200 people to win it.
Yep.
And I never dwell too much. Again, my old grandfather had a heap of old sayings, and he always said you never want to judge people by the amount of ribbons they've won. And he said it'd be a sad old world that when you were burying someone, you said, "Oh, he was a great bloke, but he only ever won one thing." So I've never forgotten that, and I thought, no, I don't dwell on ribbons. I enjoy riding. I enjoy when I was competing. I enjoyed competing, but actually it was the social side of it probably more than anything that got me involved. I love going away to the camp drafts, and when people said, "Oh, what was the best part of the weekend?" I'd usually say the campfire Saturday night. It was sitting around the campfire talking to all the other competitors and what they were up to, and to me, that was, a brilliant part of the weekend.
Common people, common interest.
Yeah, talking to a chap the other day that said to me, what's changed? And I said, the problem is now nearly everyone's got a big gooseneck of some sort, and instead of sitting around a campfire on the Saturday night, they tend to all go back to their own trucks, and they've got a big flat television screen and whatnot, and they're a lot more comfortable in there than sitting out around a fire. But I think they miss out on a lot. I think that social activity was a really important part of, well, for me anyway, was an important part of getting away for the weekend.
For competitors, thinking about all the competitions, we've talked about the good things, and this is money aside because that's always a problem. What do you think is the biggest challenge with going out and attending the competitions?
Oh, I guess it's not so much the getting away on the weekend to compete. It's really having the time during the week to be training your horse and riding, because if you're going to be competitive in this day and age, you have to be able to go to the show on a horse that's fit and a horse that you've got a really good connection with. I see all the time when I'm out there judging that you can actually see the people that work at a job during the week, grab the horse out of the paddock Friday night, they might knock its mane off, give it a wash, turn up to the show Saturday, and the horse has got all the ability in the world, but because the rider hasn't been riding that horse, they make little mistakes all weekend, and usually by Sunday afternoon they're just starting to get it right, and then they go home, put the horse back out and go back to work again.
Okay.
And that's just the reality of today. I mean, most people today, even people on the land today, a lot of them have to work off farm to be able to make ends meet at the moment with this drought.
Yes, well, talking about the drought, and that's a challenge in itself. There would have been quite a few challenges that you've had, just working on the land over the years. You want to talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people have got horses and may not be as aware. It's easy when you're living, on the coast, living in suburbia, even having an income from another job and not being aware of the harsh realities. But, if you can talk a little bit about that, it'd be great.
Yeah, well, especially if you're breeding, you've really got to be able to look after mares and foals, and if you haven't got the ability or the feed or financial backing behind you to be able to do that, I've said to quite a few people that are struggling at the moment. And I said, well, how'd you do it a couple of years ago? Oh, well, it rained. And I said, yeah, but, you've actually got to be able to manage situations like this drought. And, in my own situation, we are just not taking outside mares at the moment because I don't want to be responsible for looking after other people's horses at a time when finding supplementary feed is difficult, and if you can find it, it's too expensive. So I think you have to. I'll just breed a couple of my own horses. I only bred one foal of my own last year, and I've got 3 due in a couple of weeks' time. But I think I'll just worry about my own horses and looking after them. But look, I've been through a lot of drought years. I've had fires going through properties. I've had floods and all sorts of things where you've just got to pick the pieces up at the end. And I, apart from the old stallion here, I like to try and keep my horses relatively young, and by that I mean sort of under 12. Once a horse gets over 12 years of age, I'll either sell them or give them away. I've given away a few mares over the years that I worked and competed on and that sort of thing, and then I've bred a couple of foals out of them, and then they get to 12, 13, and I think, well, they've still got plenty of life left in them, but I've got a daughter coming on or a son coming on or whatever, and so I'll give that old mare away. I've given quite a few horses away over the years to kids to do pony club and that sort of thing, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of that, watching other people ride my horses as well. So.
Good. Just taking you back now to, you spend a lot of time judging, but what's a common fault you see when you're training judges? What are judges, they don't mean to be a bad judge or not a good judge, but what's a common thing that you see for someone who's starting off judging, or maybe someone who's been judging for a while and they just don't realise that they're doing this?
Actually, the biggest fault I find with horse judges, and it comes from my experience in the cattle industry, is they go out there to find all the faults with the horses. And because you don't have to get on a microphone like we do with the cattle judging and justify why you put the animals where you have, a lot of the horse judges go out and they go, oh, that one's got a bad leg, oh, that one's got something else wrong with it, that one paddles. When we go out in the cattle industry, we go out there to find the one that we really like. Mm-hmm. And then the next one that we really like, because what we got to do when we finish judging is get on a microphone and go, that animal I've got in first place is the best animal in the ring because, and you have to be able to explain that all the way down the line. And, I've judged, cattle classes that have had 60 head in them, and you've got to be able to comment on animals without being derogatory, but actually be able to physically talk about something that when they go back into the shed after judging, people can go along and go, oh, yeah, I see what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. And they can do that. With the horse judging, because people can just go, oh, yeah, first, second, third, fourth, put the ribbons on them, turn around and walk away. Yep. They don't have to get on the microphone. They don't have to justify it. And I've seen some horrendous judging. And I thought, wow, I'd love to give you a microphone and get you to explain why you've placed them where you did, because there's no way known I could see how those horses were placed where they were.
Yeah.
There was a horse at Melbourne Royal Show who went around, did a whole circle on the wrong lead and got supreme ridden.
Wow.
And I thought, you've got to be kidding. But anyway, and that was supposedly a well-respected judge. But, it was a really bad look from where I was sitting.
Yes, and probably from lots of people in the ring too that are watching, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, I've never minded. I've shown a lot of cattle, I've shown a lot of horses, and you never mind getting beaten by a better one. Mm-hmm. And, I've been out in the ring and, and I've seen some really top workouts and I thought, oh, wow, there's your winner. And usually they do. And sometimes you'll win one that you shouldn't have, and sometimes someone else will win one. But that's just competition. It evens itself out over the time. And if you keep riding and keep competing, you'll You'll win some, you'll lose some, but that's the way it is.
Do you think this is going to be implemented in the future, that, at every competition the judge has to justify it? I mean, if you look at, scores like show jumping, horse knocks a rail, it's on the ground. Dressage judges, at the higher levels, they're putting up their scores for each movement. But, just that bit of a feedback from the judge and why, because you see it at the odd show, why did you do that, or what did you think of these horses? But just as a general thing, even just as part of training to report back to a board, do you think it's in the process of being implemented?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not sure whether you've seen the judging sheets that the Australian stock horses do now, but our hack patterns and working patterns and a lot of the stuff we do are all broken down similar to what you're talking about in the dressage world. And so a particular, like a haunch turn, might be out of 10 points, and then, canter a circle left with a flying change and things. And each of those areas of change and has to be scored on a sheet so that at the end you've got a score out of 100, and a competitor can say, "Oh, gee, I thought I would have done better than that," and that they can have a look at the sheet and go, "Oh, geez, I must have missed my flying change," or I've done a whole circle there on the wrong lead, or something like that. And it's really good. I must admit, when it first came in, I found it difficult to change from placing them in order as they worked. But once I got used to the system, I thought it was fantastic, because it was great for me to go back and look and review what I'd done and gone, "Oh, wow, if that person had have got that right, they would have gone from 5th place to 1st place,
Yes.
And so part of what my job now as a national judging assessor is to go around and actually teach our stock horse judges how to use that point score system, because 5 being satisfactory, 3 and 2 points is sort of unsatisfactory level, 1 is an attempt, and then we go above 5 is good, and then very good, and then basically 10 out of 10 is your perfect score. So a horse can go out and score a 1 for one part of that workout, but if they're scoring 9s and 10s for the rest of it, they can still win.
Okay. That makes sense.
Whereas once upon a time, someone would go out, miss their flying change and go, "Oh, well, that's it, I've blown it now," and then basically ruin all the rest of their ride as well. Whereas now we know that the pattern is broken down into usually 10 sections worth 10 points each. And so if you blow one little section of that pattern, don't panic. Just get back into the pattern and get everything else right, and you could still end up with a really good score.
Yep. Now, I know you're pretty busy. Your job as a national judge assessor must keep you busy. And I know that, watching the horses that you've given away, watching the kids in Pony Club bring them on, and that must be pretty exciting to see that. What else? I mean, what's the main things you're looking forward to in the next 12 months or so? You've also got your 3 foals ready to come on the ground as well. Yeah.
Oh, and I've got 2-year-olds and yearlings around me. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this 4-year-old colt get going. I think he'll be pretty exceptional when he's out there. I'm out and about seeing a lot of horses, and he's going to be very, very competitive when he does get out and about. So I'm looking forward to seeing him get going. I've got a few judging jobs coming up myself, and I've also got some judging assessments to do in the next 12 months. I've decided to step down off the board of directors of the Stock Horse Society at the AGM next year, because I've just got a fair bit on my plate. And last year I was very sick with influenza and pneumonia, and spent 14 days in a coma in hospital.
Oh, wow.
The specialists that's looking after me said there were 3 there the day I came in, and none of them thought I'd be going home. So
Wow.
I'm on borrowed time. So I thought, no, I need to get out and enjoy myself a little bit. Not sure how much time I've shaved off my life, but I'm going to make the most of what's left. And so I've been on committees and boards of directors since I was 21, and I'm now 61. So I've put a fair bit back into something that I love doing, and but I'm going to spend a bit of time doing other things as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll still be there. I've told the Victorian Management Council I do the PA at the state championships and a couple of the branch shows, and I enjoy doing that. That keeps me involved, and I just actually am a horse tragic. That's all. I love getting out there and helping people and seeing things get better. That's the best part, you know, when you see young kids and really struggling when they're sort of 9, 10, and if you can give them a little bit of advice, and then you see them again when they're 15, 16 and they're little stars, that's just brilliant, you know. You can't do any better than that.
No, that's right. Larry, this has been, really good talking to you. But before we go, if you were going to summarise your philosophy with horses just into a sentence or two, how would you do that?
Okay, so I basically think that you start off with type, temperament and conformation. Mm-hmm. When you get type and temperament and conformation right, you can turn that horse into anything. And, I bred a horse that he had 3 generations of open camp drafters on both sides of his pedigree, and a lady that got him came second in the Gary Owen on him. And
wow.
So he's that sort of just tells you that if you breed them that are put together right and they're a good type and they've got a good temperament, and he was the only horse in the workout at the Gary Owen that was able to do a flying change, and he just did it effortlessly, and it was a brilliant workout. And I've got heaps of kids. We sold a 3-year-old filly last year that went to a 9-year-old girl, and she'd only been riding for, I think, 3 years, and she's riding a little 3-year-old at Pony Club and won a heap of ribbons. And, I'm not really into Facebook that much, but she rings me up and says, have a look on Facebook, I sent you a picture. And I get a real buzz out of seeing that. So I think that's sort of, where I'll be. We worked out the other day, I've bred just a bit over 200 horses since I started breeding horses, and they're out there doing all sorts of things, from playing polo cross to camp drafting, showing pony clubbers, weekend trail riders, and people are just having fun with them. And I get just as much of a buzz out of people sending me, stories and pictures on what they're doing on the horses as when I was riding them myself. So.
Yeah. Larry, there's so many things that we could just keep talking about. I'd love to have you back again, just to, you've just got such an experience in the horse industry in Australia and the breeding. I mean, we haven't even touched on lots of things that you've been doing. So if people do want to contact you, Larry, what's the best way?
They can get in contact with me. I've got an email or a mobile phone, so you want those?
Say them now, and we'll also have them on your page, which will be horsechats.com/Larry Cutler, or just go to horsechats.com and search for Larry and you'll find those. We'll have them on the bottom of your page. But, Larry, I think if you can give them now, that'd be great.
Yep, so it's just Larry, Larry, at Carrabba Park, Karraba park.com.au, and my mobile number is 0448 194 599.
Brilliant. All right, Larry, thank you very much for having a chat to us today, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm happy to help whenever I can.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.